Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Daniel
With Dan Irvin.
Well, in the last chapter of the book of Daniel, I just want to look at the first few verses of this chapter today. Starting in verse 1, there will be a time of distress, such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. You know, there's a reality here that is being talked about of throughout the course of history and pointing to eternity, that suffering is real. But this chapter begins in despair, points to suffering, but it moves towards hope. It moves towards hope, not just for the soul, for eternity, but for our bodies, our life on earth. Hope not for, just the endurance to get through maybe painful moments that we face on earth, but the transformation that we can have forever. In other words, this chapter and really the whole book of Daniel points us towards the book of Revelation. We've seen a lot of that. It points us to the fact that death is not the end. Death is not the end. For those whose names are written in the book, for those who trust in the living hope, in God the Father, in the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, what comes after death is not the end. So how can we be sure? How can we believe this? How can we understand this? Well, I think we have to look at Jesus. We have to look at, not just what he taught about the resurrection, but how he became the resurrection. The New Testament writes that Jesus is the first to rise from the dead, never to die again. It's 1 Corinthians 15:20. His resurrection is not just a miracle, one of his miracles, but it's actually a foreshadowing for what will be for those who put their trust in him. He is the one spoken of in Daniel chapter 9 who was cut off, who bore the distress, who bore the shame, the curse of death, so that we could be raised with him in the promise of Daniel chapter 12. So recently I was watching a movie with my kids, and the movie had some twists and turns and a little suspenseful plot to it. And I had seen this movie years ago and decided, we could watch it with the kids. And as they're watching it, as they're going through the twists and turns, the ups and downs, they're asking questions. Dad, will this happen? Will that happen? And, I didn't want to give anything away. Or why is this character doing this? Why is that happening there? And you could see the uneasiness in them as they watched, almost wondering, man, I wonder if this will turn out the way that I hope it could or it should. And as I watched the movie, I was having a much different experience because I had seen it. I knew that the ending was good. I knew that the hero would win and the villain would lose. But for them, when they were in it, when they were in the story of the movie and didn't know how it would end, there was suspense, there was hurt, there was heartache. I wasn't experiencing any of those things because I knew, even though I could resonate with the characters in the movie going through that, I said, okay, but wait, there's an end coming that you'll be victorious. That will be good for you. And in the same way, I think in Daniel chapter 12, I think that's what we're pointed to. It's a whisper in the middle of a painful moment, in the middle of maybe this chapter that we don't understand, saying, keep going, that Jesus has the final word. Jesus has already won. He has already been resurrected from the dead. We know that now as readers of the book of Daniel. You see, Jesus walked into the darkest part of this story, into human history, into death itself, and he walked out on the other side, entered right into it, and conquered it. So I don't know if the suffering maybe that you've been going through or the pain that you're in right now, if you're in a painful season, if you feel like, man, I wonder if it'll last forever. The distress that we might be in could be real, but the promise of life everlasting with Jesus is that whatever we're in now won't last forever. The end of the story is good. If we put our trust, if we can put our hope in something that Jesus has already done, knowing the ending to the story. That is the hope that I see in Daniel chapter 12.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.